Welcome to part 4. In the video description, I'll post the timestamps for the various topics we cover about staying organized. As a freelancer, you need to keep yourself organized. So here are some of the things that others have found helpful.
So the biggest thing that I can recommend when it comes to organization is making sure that you have everything written down in a planner or calendar, whether it's on your phone or it's a physical book that you carry around with you. You just need to have it all written down somewhere when you can easily access it.
Because you're not doing the same thing every day. You're not doing it the same place. You're not doing it at the same time. You might not even be doing the same kind of job. You definitely want to have a place where all of that information lies and exists for yourself to refer back to. There's no way that you can try to remember all of that.
You're not going to just remember off the top of your head when you have to do something by.
I am a planner junkie. The one that I'm loving right now is the Get to Work book, which is really great because the months have nice layouts, and then you can see the week layout. And the reason I like these week layouts so much is because they don't have time. A lot of planners and journals have time brackets on them, and that doesn't really work for my lifestyle. So it's really nice to have a planner that's a little bit more flexible.
Because my schedule's always changing so much, I prefer to use a bullet journal because then I can customize it for what I'm doing at that time and I can adjust it for whatever I need it to be. But one of my favorite things that I have done is I have a monthly page where I can see visually chunks of time where I am at different shops. And so it's very easy to see when I have a gap coming up, and so I know that I need to start reaching out to shops again.
Sometimes I have 3 different versions of the same calendar. I have it in a planner, I have it on my phone, and I might even have it, on one of those pasted calendars that you have on a wall. Most of the time I end up referring to my phone because that's usually when I am inputting a date, and then it helps me to write it down again when I get home in an actual planner or on paper, just because I like that tactile feeling of pen to paper.
I have attached to my wall next to my computer where I do my general work is a full 12-month wall calendar. I'm a very visual person, so I want to see the whole year laid out for me so that I know how to schedule upcoming work. Having a year laid out where I can visualize June's going to be a really busy month. I can already see there's a bunch of stuff happening. I am no longer available in June for anyone who asks. June's off the table. And I need to see that visually. I tried to use calendars on my phone and little flip date books, and that did not work. The wall calendar is for me. It is 36 inches wide. It's massive, and I love it. And it's also tactile because I could write on it, and somehow that is more of a satisfying process than typing it into my phone.
But a physical record seems to be a little bit more helpful. Finding what works for you is just important, and tracking what you're doing.
I'm a big list maker. It helps me feel productive. It helps me feel focused. Being able to cross things off is really, really rewarding for me.
If I keep good lists, then I'm able to leave them for anyone that I may be working with so they know what the to-do list for the day is. If I'm waiting for something to get built in the scene shop, then the carpenter can see where I want to move forward on some things, and that may help them change their own to-do lists around so that we can all work together and make sure that everything's streamlined.
I have the spreadsheet where I keep track of all of the shops that I have heard about and the places that I might want to work for. One of the most helpful things that I have is the column for how interested I am working there. This helps me to know which shops I should focus on, and then if I have contacted them or not. I also really like how I have a column for how long it will take me to get there, because that's important, as well as a column for just general notes where I put where I have heard about them, as well as notes about if they got back to me or not, because it can get kind of confusing when you have so many different shops.
And then when it comes to taking notes from a designer, oftentimes I set up a Google sheet where we can both share and make edits. When we have a living document, like using Google Drive, it allows them to update things in real time. It allows me to update things in real time. It allows me to keep track of conversations and notes that we've had along the way. The production manager can see it, and it really puts everybody on the same page when it comes to communication.
In keeping organized, you can't forget the financial side of things. Something that Jenny said is the experience is great, but don't forget the business side of things. And she goes on to remind you about all of the things you have to keep in mind financially and the kind of expenses that you're going to be having. So she lists off a couple things like different kinds of insurance. Remember your utilities and rent, your tools, your safety gear, your internet costs, phone service, food, entertainment, car payments, school payments, retirement accounts, which she says is very important to set up early and to put something into every month. Taxes, dues to any organizations, and lastly she says keep credit card debt at bay. That's very important. When asked about finances, several people mentioned taxes.
Learn about what you need to save for taxes and what you can expense. And if you don't know about those things, hire an accountant to help you set that up. You'll save a lot of money. For my finances, I use QuickBooks, and I have been reorganizing how I do all of my business accounting in the last year or so, and that's been really great. It's nice to have a full accounting of all of the expenses that I have for work and to see them listed in terms of the type of expense it is, like paint clothes or shop expenses, paint tools, all of the usual stuff. And then there's some lesser known unusual things also in there that I had been forgetting, and to have them all listed out is great for my mental list of what are the things I need to be paying attention to that I can expense as a tax write-off. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind when you're a freelancer, because your taxes are your responsibility.
As a freelance artist, chances are you're going to be working under a 1099 contract. And when you're working under a 1099 contract, they don't take the taxes out right away. You're responsible for taking the taxes out come tax season, or if you pay quarterly taxes.
Many, many years ago, I created a separate savings account that as soon as I got paid for a job, I put a certain percentage of that income directly into that savings account, so I had the money set aside for taxes. Do that if you're not doing that, unless you're an incredibly organized person, in which case, good on you. I was not. I needed to have it literally in a separate bucket so that I wouldn't pull from it. And that worked. That worked great for me.
Even if you go online and you try and do some research about that right away, it's really important to learn how to do that bookkeeping, even if you're not doing the taxes yourself.
As, more work comes in for me and my revenue is greater, I'm having to do more organizing to keep things together. And I'm doing that by reaching out to an accountant that I pay for a couple of hours of consulting work a month. And we sit down and look at what I've done, and she tells me how to do it better and keep working on this. So I'm reaching out to people who know more than me to help me get my business accounting in order more than it has been.
When it comes to finances, all I can really recommend is just making sure you hold on to everything that you're given until you're sure that tax season is over and you don't need to keep track of those things anymore.
I keep all of my pay stubs from all of my different jobs that I work in, all the different places. I have one of those accordion or like philo binders that I keep. Each section is from a different place of work. And so I keep all of my pay stubs for the year with the intention of making it easier on myself for tax season.
I did find a physical day planner to be very helpful. So it would have a record of where I was and what hours, so that when I looked back, I made sure that I received all my pay stubs and all that stuff that I needed come tax time. There can be little jobs that you do them and then you're on to the next thing and you lose track of, did I see that check? So having a physical record like that was helpful for me. And then when I would receive a check, I would keep the stub.
I found I might work at 4 different places in 2 weeks. And by the end of the time I get to the second week, I almost don't even remember what I was doing in the beginning and whether or not I got paid. I have to recognize when I get paid and when I don't get paid. And having a place to put in all of my checks and all of my pay stubs makes it a whole lot easier.
I have a spreadsheet that I use to keep track of who has paid me and how much they're paying me. It's pretty basic. I have a column for who it is. If it's kind of a one-off, one-day sort of thing, then I put the day that it happened and how many hours that I worked when it was just such a short little chunk. I also have a column for if it was taxed so that I can keep that in mind. And then I have a column for if I have been paid and what method they're going to be paying me through, if it's direct deposit or a check in the mail. Feel free to comment down below any of the ways that you have used to keep yourself organized.